Why do objects have certain colors? Based on the inner world beyond the prism of senses by Mohammed Babai. Let's start with a review of the previous sessions. We said that to understand the world, we need to start with self-awareness and use channels that provide us with information about this world. In fact, there is no other way to comprehend this world than using the 5 sensory channels. One of the most important of these channels is the visual channel. In the previous sessions, we discussed vision and explained how it works. We talked about electromagnetic waves and clarified that these waves do not have a property called color, but their difference lies only in the intensity of energy layers or wavelengths. When these waves reach our eyes, they stop there and send the neuronal message to the brain. The brain perceives this message as color, so the specific color is not an inherent property of the waves. It is rather a label that we assign to different wavelengths. Now, today, we want to see how colors are perceived in our brain and why they always appear constant without any external existence. Why is the sky always blue? Why do the leaves we see always appear green? To understand this, let's review once again what happens during the process of vision. The basic process of vision can be explained as follows. When light reaches an object, it gets reflected and reaches our eyes. This is the simplest way to describe vision. To simplify it even further, we can imagine someone standing and throwing a ball towards a wall. Now, we label this ball as a red ball, but why do we consistently perceive its color as red? Our hypothesis is that this consistency might be linked to the structure of the object from which the light is reflected. Imagine someone throwing 2 types of balls at a wall with 3 nets. One net has small holes, another has medium-sized holes, and the third has large holes. The small and large balls hit net A and are reflected, leaving a mark on the wall. Net B allows only the larger balls to reflect, while the smaller ones pass through it. Net C doesn't reflect any balls, so no image of net C forms on the wall. Therefore, the image formed on the opposite wall is a result of the structure and size of the openings in the nets, which selectively reflect specific balls. So, we can say that a specific size of ball always gets reflected by a specific net. Now, if we want to explain this example using light, considering the balls as light and their size as different wavelengths of light, we can say that light waves with a constant wavelength always get reflected from a certain object because, in nature, materials, just like those nets, have their opening size determined by the arrangement of their molecules. As we mentioned before, all materials are made up of particles called atoms, and these atoms in different elements have varying numbers of electrons and protons. When these atoms form chemical bonds and create molecules, the molecules in turn give rise to materials through their bonding. The arrangement of these atoms and molecules determines which type of ball or light wave gets reflected. Now, here arises another question. It is true that color is just a label we assign to different wavelengths of light, but perhaps in the real world, beyond our sensory channels, do objects have inherent colors? To find the answer to this question, we need to examine what objects are actually made of and whether they have the capability of possessing colors. Albert Einstein presented a formula that proved matter and energy have the same nature. He established that matter is nothing but energy condensed and localized at a point. Let's explain this with an example. If we consider the ocean as energy and a floating iceberg within it as matter, we observe that in reality, the iceberg is part of the water's molecules and can maintain cohesion among its components. In the water, it creates an independent set, which we perceive as a separate and stationary object. However, the truth is that the iceberg continues to be water, and water continues to be an iceberg, both having the same nature. For example, the difference between iron and helium lies only in the number of constituent particles. Helium is formed from 4 energy fields in the center and 2 other particles rotating around it. Iron has 56 energy fields in the center and 26 other fields rotating around the center. It is like placing 56 bricks in one place and 6 bricks of the same material in another place, and claiming that these two sets are not similar and have differences in every aspect. Interestingly, we perceive each set differently, with different colors, smells, tastes. The reality is that the world we live in is devoid of any smell, taste, color, darkness, sound, or rigidity. These properties only exist in our inner and imaginary world, and we, or rather our brains, label this world with various names like color, smell, solidness, etc. So, it can be said that objects in the external world cannot have inherent colors. They are simply creations of our minds and inner world.